story of this film weaves through 9 communities. Though they all lie on the equator's path, they are not tied by politics, religion, or culture. It is their imagination, their essential humanity, that binds them. Over 2,000 years ago, Greek geographers determined that the Earth was a sphere and divided it into 5 rings. The ends, they said, were frozen, while the latitudes where they lived were fit for civilized people. But they imagined the belt around the belly of the world to be a torrid zone, where the heat of the sun would make life unbearable. This place, the middle of the Earth, they called the equator. European navigators began to test the Greek theories. They sailed south to find this equator and see what lay in that other uncharted half of the world. In their wake came the colonists. By the end of the 19th century, every equatorial country had a new master. The missionaries, the traders, and the immigrants brought with them a powerful and seductive new culture. The old ways began to change, be lost. Outside influence, globalization, had begun. But global influence is no longer carried abroad on wind and tide. It's punched through the ether at the speed of light. The equator has become home to the new explorers, a great circle of sky peppered with orbiting satellites, beaming communications and television around the globe, shrinking time and distance to microseconds.
Big soaps are clumsy for little hands and may cost...
Su programa estelar, la televisión.
¡Lucero de la mañana! Lucero de la mañana, lucero de la mañana, sale que te quiero ver, sale que te quiero ver. Si alguna nube te tapa, si alguna nube te tapa, rompe si sabes querer, ay rompe si sabes querer. Ay, ay,
Ecuador's capital city lies just 12 miles from the enigmatic line. Snow on the equator. A paradox for the Europeans. Even more of a puzzle was the precise location of the line. In 1735, French scientists arrived in Ecuador to determine its exact position. They succeeded. The achievement was celebrated with a monument, La Mitad del Mundo, the middle of the world. Against all expectations, the Otavalo Indians have weathered the onslaught of globalization by cleverly exploiting the uniqueness and value of their traditional crafts, selling to the very world that threatens them. Ecuador was colonized under a Catholic banner. It was a gilded, opulent religion. While the Indians accepted the Christian ceremonies, they continued to practice their traditional forms of animism, worshiping the spirits they believe exist in nature. Rituals unchanged for untold generations rely on the belief that the mountains and the sun are powerful forces, and that nature holds the secrets of spirit healing. The Spanish forced the Indians to attend Mass. They still go, but when they want results, they turn to shamans for healing.
La bendición de Dios Todopoderoso, Padre, Hijo y Espíritu Santo.
Historical change has been forced on Ecuador from outside. Spanish landlords on Spanish-ruled land, the country crossed by a line visible only in the mind. But land reform has reinstated the peasant, and the equator is now just a tourist attraction. Globalization continues, but so does resistance to complete assimilation. an island, just one more in an entire archipelago once owned by the Dutch. The outside world arrived late here. Rough seas and dangerous currents produced by the unique swirling forces at the equator kept all but the most intrepid explorers away until recent times. On every hilltop, there is a village where the past now mixes with the present in an easy truce. Nias is the westernmost of the more than 17,000 islands that make up Indonesia. The old crafts are still practiced, the customs still observed. No longer a warlike and aggressive people, their battle trophies are displayed proudly for future generations. But the hazardous journey and high human cost of entry to a splendid isolation is in the past. Memories pinned to walls.
Which has been heavily bombed, we saw how unequal this struggle is. The village was undefended, and an important part for this.
The world now comes to Nias more directly, in the blink of an eye. It's other people's wars that now hold their attention.
Dozens of them fill the corridor, 100 yards long, too terrified to go above ground. One commander here said he thought tomorrow would be D-Day. Pontoon bridges will allow hundreds more tanks to join those already closing in on the city from the west and northwest. The stage is set for the final confrontation. The politicians have done their talking, now the men of war will have their say. Angus Roxburgh, BBC News.
Traditional war dances are still performed in Nias. The islanders developed fierce defenses to protect themselves from invaders and neighboring villages. Once, this stone-jumping ritual, called the Hombo Batu, was how the islanders prepared young boys for war. The women once danced to welcome home their warriors. Now they perform for travelers from other cultures. The Kayapo Indians believe that the first man descended from the skies on a cotton rope. The jungle and the river were his universe, providing him with all his needs. They represent this harmony of universe through the perfect shape of the circle. Their first official contact with the world came in 1957. The outsiders arrived in the same way as the Kayapo, by traveling down the river. When that alien world did intrude, the potential for disruptive, irreversible change was immediate. But the Kayapo made clear choices between things of substance and the noise and glitter coming from outside their circle. they limited the amount of globalization they would allow. There are no roads to this village. It has remained deliberately isolated, its people contacting the outside world on their own terms. Despite the shock of first contact, the Kayapo have managed to keep many of their traditional ways intact. The decoration of their bodies is still a daily routine.
Tani eripten. Cuma kabin.
Nej.
The Kayapo make a clear distinction between their universe and the other one that waits impatiently upriver. The women remain as they have always done within the circle. A privileged few, however, such as this Kayapo chief's son, enjoy both worlds. The Kayapo earn income by leasing gold mines on their land. This gives them the freedom to limit the effects of globalization on their own people. The men dance not to celebrate the truck or the airplane, nor even the waging of war. They dance to honor their staple food, the plant we know as manioc. When you die, say the Kayapo, you go to the village of the dead, where men can sleep during the day and hunt at night. There, children become men, and old warriors become young again. It is an uncomplicated legend. How long it can survive against the images and sounds from beyond the circle will depend on how long the Kayapo can keep their freedom to choose. In the days of the great seafarers, this port was called Makassar. 5 European nations tried to conquer it. None succeeded. They wanted spice, a cargo more valuable than gold. Only one outside influence was welcome in Makassar, the religion of Islam. Gradually integrated into a culture that had previously embraced both Buddhism and Hinduism, their ancient faith now sustains a people in an increasingly complex world. The people of Ujung Pandang, the Bugis, have always been traders. Today, it is a city where the sound of commerce is an incessant hum. World-class mariners, the Bugis still go to sea in traditional boats, prahus, though engines are now more common than sails. Each vessel is uniquely handmade. Whatever will fit, the prahus will carry. They are the trade line to the thousands of Indonesian islands, loaded as low to the waterline as they dare. Bugis fishermen have adapted to the demands of international trade. They sail to the outer reefs, drop chemicals or dynamite into the water, and ship the stunned but still alive fish to Hong Kong and China. One culture's tastes empty the waters of another. The Bugis' own market is a touch less dramatic. The Indonesians share their Muslim faith with a growing number of countries around the world, but they have adapted and fused it with their own style. From that moment in time when the first Europeans reached the equator, it was inevitable that the countries they explored would be drawn into the greater world. For some, a positive change, but for others, a disappointment. A rushing tide of trade that surged and fell back, leaving only remnants of the past in its wake. In the 16th century, this river was the highway that carried the Portuguese inland. By the late 1800s, the rubber won from its banks had made them rich beyond belief. Now, over 1,000 miles from the sea, new armies of conquistadors forged their way up the River Negro, still seeking their fortunes. A small piece of Europe planted itself into the jungle and took root. Amid the backwash of this teeming river city stands the Teatro Amazonas, the theater of the Amazon. A 100 years ago, the river carried marble from Italy, stairways from England, and chandeliers from France to build this opera house. Arias from the great composers still echo around its walls, mocking the folly of a dream of Europe that has long since faded. In Manaus, people are no longer seduced by a dream of Europe, but by the voluptuous images beamed in from Rio de Janeiro.
Chico da Silva, a explosão que vem da onde? Da ilha! Milhões atira sobre uma pista.
The river that once swept in the Portuguese now hosts samba competitions for local bands and dances. The winner goes to Rio for Mardi Gras and fleeting fame on television. "25 generations ago, a race of people known as the Toraja settled deep into these mountains. Isolated, protected, and determined to keep out intruders, they were able to resist change until well into the 20th century. The shape of the traditional Toraja house resembles a boat. One legend says that it is to remind them of the vessels that carried them here. In fact, it represents links to the spiritual world and their elaborate rituals of death and sacrifice. The houses are centers of religious life, belonging to the whole family, both living and dead.
lupa de Toro se necesita. Y una lupa.
In recent times, the Toraja people have become great travelers, migrating across Indonesia. But their ties to house and family have remained strong, drawing them back into village life with newfound wealth and a taste for other exotic ways. For centuries, the currency in Toraja has been trade in pigs and buffalo. But the newly rich have disturbed this arrangement. They buy these animals for money and build themselves elaborate traditional houses, even though their standing in Toraja society does not give them that right. Even the ceremonies that welcome the new house can be bought with banknotes. The Toraja consider life and death to be the same existence. Upon death, a villager is merely seen as ill until enough money has been saved for the funeral, and all the relatives have gathered. Months, perhaps years may pass between death and the funeral. Ceremony and sacrifice signal the final passage from visible life to the invisible afterlife. After the funeral, the body is carried by the young men of the village to its final position on the side of a mountain, watched over by those who have gone before. Globalization has not yet threatened the rituals of the Toraja. Instead, they are using their access to the world and the money they earn to reinforce and enhance their culture. The most prosperous nation on the equator embraced the values of globalization rather than rejecting them. Wealth was their goal. Trade and international finance their means to that end. They succeeded. Hard work and determination secured them their place in the sun. The diverse people and cultures that made up Singapore were amalgamated by official government decree and proclaimed from the rooftops. Singapore, once mostly swamp without natural resources, reinvented itself, defied its climate and geography, and built an air-conditioned heaven under glass. A unique cultural mix bowed to the work ethic. Despite their modern culture, fortune-telling, charm writing, and spirit mediums helped the Singaporeans appeal to the supernatural for guidance. Singapore has achieved what it wanted. Now, with its wealth, the nation is able to indulge itself by focusing on creating a culture appropriate to its strength and position. Nearly 2 million years ago, human existence began not in Greece, nor Spain, nor anywhere else in the Old World, but here, on this now arid, windswept plain in equatorial Africa, the cradle of mankind. Here, our complex global society took its first faltering steps. Homo erectus was found here, and paleontologists continue to search this bleak desert. Around them is a massive repository of human evolution. When the first people stood upright and walked, the earth was no longer a static environment. It became fluid and dynamic. As tribe encountered tribe, the basic exchanges that characterized the human species began. In a harsh and difficult land, nomadic movement means survival. Today, as they have done for thousands of years, a few tribes still walk the Rift Valley. One of the last is the Samburu. True nomads, the Samburu build houses only to move on and do it all again somewhere else. House building is not warriors' work. Male Samburu society is built upon the ownership of cattle. Before becoming a warrior, a boy must prove his worth by protecting the herd, singing to the cows and praising the virtues of the bulls. Cattle are the Samburu's most valuable property and a measure of a man's worth. But here too, change is altering the patterns of life. Better health care has resulted in a rise in Samburu birth rates, so a man needs more cattle to survive. New settlers are occupying this traditional region, and the land, as a consequence, is now overgrazed. The tribe must stay longer in each place, fattening their stock and joining the global circle of trade at cattle markets. Today, there are few calls to battle, few other tribes to war against. More and more Samburu are being attracted to life elsewhere. The men who stay continue the rigid code and stance of the defiant warrior. The Samburu dance to mark the passage of life. They dance to celebrate, to mourn, to give thanks. Here, the young men and women dance to choose a mate, singing sexual challenges at one another. In most Samburu ceremonies, an ox is bled and then released back into the herd. The blood is mixed with curdled cow's milk and then drunk. It gives the drinker strength and mystical powers. The myth of the equatorial climate is one of suffocating heat and continual rain. In West Africa, the myth is reality. Gabon's wealth is the gift of nature. It lies here in the ground, in the vast reserves of timber and oil. Gabon has always been an exporter. Its first commodity was human cargo, slaves for the New World. Colonized and molded by the French, Gabon has become one of the richest nations in Africa by selling off its natural resources. Agriculture, though, takes such a back seat that the country has to import much of its food, and it's expensive. Most of the people rely on a diet of plants and animals foraged from the jungle and traded at roadside markets. Libreville. Its meaning is clear: free town. There are more French nationals here now than there were in colonial times. Gabon's wealth has attracted people from all over Africa, forcing different cultures into uneasy competition. Those who live in the city have a greater chance at prosperity. One group, the Fang, are now the largest tribe in Gabon. But with no real access to the country's wealth, their only option is to maintain a traditional village life. The Fang dance to honor the jungle, the great provider. But the shrinking jungle cannot feed them indefinitely. Perhaps adaptability is the key. Gabon inherited an authoritarian, regimented Christianity from the French. But this congregation has absorbed into the service the richness of its own culture, transforming their worship into a joyous affirmation of faith. The equator, the line first defined by early Greek geographers, the line that says, "Here lies the middle of the world." This line remains constant, but the world around it is irrevocably changed. Everywhere, old ways, traditional lives are under pressure. Reaching the most remote corners of the globe, the medium of television has an enormous capacity to influence. As easily as it can enter homes around the world, it can also bring the world and its inhabitants closer. Change is not only inevitable, it is essential. In the almost 5 billion year span of Earth's existence, life is said to have been extinguished at least 3 times, each time through some natural cause. But new life has sprung forth and readapted. Hope lies in the belief that the human species, we the people, will be able to change and adapt and redefine our cultures in the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. Yes. No.